Let's get to Congressman Walter Jones, Republican, 3rd District, North Carolina. Walter Jones, thank you.
Well, it's a very important issue you and the chairman are talking about, and it's more than just the issue in Charlottesville. As you said very well, John, that's why I like to be on your show. It's the future of America. So maybe I can be on tomorrow or Friday. I've got a interview with Sinclair Group about a bill that I've joined with Paul Gosar, who said that online contributions by the unknown should not be permissible. So that might be something you want me to get Paul Gosar on your show to talk about.
Well, go over that now. Explain what that is, sir, now.
Well, actually, it says to amend the Federal Elections Act of 1971 to prohibit the acceptance by political committees online contributions from certain unverified sources and for other purposes. Of course, that's just the introductory part of the bill, but that's what it does. I mean, here with this thing with the influence of Russia, here we are trying to make sure that the unknown and those who have a nefarious reason for supporting candidates cannot do so. That would be hard, I guess. That's why I would say maybe to get Paul Gosar on, because it would be hard to how are you going to police this, but at least I think it's worth a debate in a committee of jurisdiction. That's the way I always feel about legislation. If you don't get it to the floor, okay, but give me a chance to have a hearing on it, and then maybe it might get to the floor. So anyway, that's the idea of what the bill does, and I think it's needed. And so I joined Paul Gosar from Arizona and about 30 other members of the House.
Congressman, are you overly concerned with the amount of dark money now that's coming into politics and backing various candidates? Do you think that is something that we need to worry about?
Absolutely. John, you know that I'm on the lawsuit to try to get the issue of the influence of super PACs to the Supreme Court. And it is that in itself is not sunshine, because you can give millions of dollars, but you don't give your name. So, yeah, I think we've gone too far to the unknown, to be honest with you. I really do. Politically speaking, campaigns, we've gone too far.
So everybody that knows what these super PACs, what they do is I could give $100 million to a super PAC and not have to reveal my name. And then the super PAC in turn, even though legally they say they're not coordinating with a particular political campaign, they can run negative ads against my opposition, run positive ads for me. They can meet in the coffee shop with a dark jacket on where nobody sees them. I mean, there's always communication going on. But the object of the original campaign finance reform was to make it so that I think a couple can only give $5,000 to a federal candidate, an individual like $2,750. Now, there was a time when there was no restriction on that, all right? Because those limits were put on. Like, for example, true story, 1968, Lamar Hunt, remember him? He owned the Kansas City Chiefs AFL. Lamar Hunt, 1968, met George Wallace running for president as an independent, and his campaign staff met them at a hotel in Kansas City and gave the George Wallace for President campaign $1 million in a suitcase cash. Back then it was legal, right? So we changed that law, but now we have the super PAC thing, which you don't know where the money is coming from. It's hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's influencing everything that's going on. So you got people like Tom Steyer giving hundreds of millions, George Soros hundreds of millions of dollars, but then you have others that you don't even know who they are, right?
But that's the point. That's the dark money you were talking about. Good example. But I'm telling you that if we don't do something about it, there will come a time. I might not be here at the time, but the very, very rich, which I'm not opposed to. I'm not rich, by the way, but I'm not opposed to those who are. They will control who sits in the Senate and who sits in the House. It's already getting that way because of all these exclusions from super PACs to online contributions that might be coming from Russia or from China. You just don't know. So that's why I went on this bill. It's 1344, if you want to look it up, H.R. 1344. And I would be glad to get Paul Gosar on to give you a call if you want. Just let Allison know, because if we don't start doing some campaign finance reform, the American people will not even turn up to vote because they say that candidate is bought and paid for.
Okay, since we had you on last week, President Trump said, I've kind of had enough with Paul Ryan, and the Republican leadership makes the deal, keep the government open for 90 days, CR, 90 days, makes the deal with the Democrats. Did you feel betrayed?
Well, John, I'll tell you the truth. I mean, this again is raised. Today we hit $20 trillion in debt. It was a kind of an announcement. It wasn't a celebration, but an announcement. We've hit $20 trillion U.S. Treasury. All we're doing when we cut deals like we've done with Pelosi and Schumer and the president, all we're doing is bypassing a debate on the floor. And in fact, they've got a young man was just on C-SPAN who's very bright from Pennsylvania. He's got a bill. He's a young member, very, very bright fellow. But he's got a bill to eliminate the debt ceiling. Well, to me, if you're going to eliminate the debt ceiling, and the average person will never know how the debt is just growing at an astronomical rate to head us down to a collapse.
I am so in agreement with you on that. And most things that President Trump does, I agree with, or I try to understand it. I know he floated the idea of, hey, why don't we even have this? Absolutely, we have to have the debt ceiling because it's the only time that we have a conversation about it. If there were no debt ceiling, you would never know if it was 20 trillion, 25 trillion. No one would ever know. No one would ever have a debate. There'd be no pressure to cut anything ever. And so this is the only means that we have. Everybody knows, Congressman, this is unsustainable. I mean, even Trump knows it. You cannot go forward with 20, and it's over 20. It's 20.5 now. In 3 months, it'll be 21 trillion. You can't go forward carrying this kind of debt. I mean, it's going to blow up in your face. You can't sustain it. Trump's plan is, within this 90 days by Christmas, to get this major tax reform package done. And he says, look, if I can get the economy growing at 3.5% for 8 straight quarters, I can generate over an 8-year period about $8 trillion in increased revenue, and that would bring the debt down. And then we'll start looking at things to cut beyond that. But even that's a risk, because here's the problem. If you get some of the tax relief, but not all of it, and it doesn't have the economic impact you want, revenues could actually go down. That's the risk here, that we have, we don't get the total tax reform package the Trump administration wants. We get one that's kind of half-baked, so-called the skinny bill, right?
Yeah. Well, John, if the tax cuts that happen at the end of a period of time, maybe 5 years or 10 years, you evaluate, is it paying for itself? And that is always, in my book, a key, because I believe in tax cuts, but if you go down and 10 years down the road, they're not paying for themselves, then you're adding to the debt and the deficit of this country. You've gained nothing in the long term.
Absolutely. Congressman, we're talking about a big tax cut package. We're keeping the government open. We just had a resolution passed yesterday to call out hate groups, but nothing on AUMF. Nothing.
Well, this is where, again, my frustration, which I've sent you that article about the taxpayers paying a British company $50 million, and the British company took it themselves and bought Aston Martins and Bentleys, and but I don't know where anybody cares anymore. You care. Many of your listeners care. I care. But up here, I don't know who cares anymore. There should have been an outrage. Why in the world, with all this devastation in Florida and in Louisiana and in Texas, we would allow the Department of Defense to negotiate a contract with a British firm to teach Afghans to be intel officers, and the British firm took the money and bought 7 luxury cars, riding around Piccadilly Square in an Aston Martin, waving to all the people. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Doesn't make any sense, but
no.
Look, your colleagues are onto something else. They don't seem to be interested in this. The bottom line is, and I've said this 100 times, they don't want to go on the record. They don't want to have to deal with war and Afghanistan, and they don't want to go on the record. So they'd rather just keep punting the football down the pike, and Paul Ryan is going to continue to strip these out, and congressmen like Scott Taylor go and meet with them, and he assures them there's going to be an AUMF, but there never is one.
No, I hope
that
I would be honest with you. You saw the letter Allison sent it to you that I reminded Paul Ryan that he's been written 13 times asking for an AUMF, and he's done nothing about it. And I don't know. We just keep beating the drum, but I'm afraid the drum beat is getting where nobody's hearing it anymore.
Well, we're going to keep fighting it. We're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Walter Jones, 3rd District, North Carolina, for being with us. I'm going to follow up with your staff. I know you have to take off.